Have you ever caught your reflection out of the corner of your eye and sworn it moved? Just a flicker, a trick of the light. That's what I told myself at first. It started subtly, a slight delay. I'd turn my head, and for a split second my reflection would remain, staring straight ahead before snapping to mimic me. I'd blink, rub my eyes, and dismiss it. Stress, I thought. Lack of sleep. My mind playing tricks on me. It was an old ornate mirror that came with the apartment. Tall, oval, with a dark, heavy wood frame carved with twisting vines and strange, unidentifiable flowers. It was beautiful, in a somber, Gothic way. The landlord said it had been in the building for a century. I thought it added character. Now I think it brought something else entirely. The delays became longer, the discrepancies more noticeable. I'd be brushing my teeth and my reflection would stop, the toothbrush hovering mid-air while I continued the motion. A cold knot would tighten in my stomach. I'd stare, heart pounding, until it resumed, perfectly in sync again. Was I going crazy? I started testing it. I'd wave my hand quickly, trying to catch it off guard. Sometimes it worked perfectly. Other times its hand would lag or even twitch in a way mine hadn't. One evening, I was getting ready to go out. I put on a red dress, something bright and cheerful to combat the growing unease in my own home. As I stood before the mirror, adjusting my collar, my reflection smiled. I hadn't. My face was a mask of concentration. But there she was, in the glass, with a wide, toothy grin spreading across her face. Her eyes, my eyes, glinted with a cold, unfamiliar amusement. I stumbled back, my breath catching in my throat. The smile vanished. She was me again, still and waiting. That night I couldn't sleep. I covered the mirror with a sheet, but it felt like a flimsy shield. I could feel its presence in the room, a silent, watching void. The next morning, I pulled the sheet away. Everything seemed normal. I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. Maybe it was a hallucination, a waking nightmare. I decided to ignore it, to starve it of the attention it seemed to crave. For a few days, it worked, or I forced myself to believe it worked. I avoided looking directly into the mirror, using the small one in the bathroom instead. I kept the lights low in the bedroom, but the feeling of being watched never left. It was a constant prickling sensation on the back of my neck. The turning point came on a rainy Tuesday. I was home all day, the gray light outside making the apartment feel even more claustrophobic. I made the mistake of glancing at the mirror as I walked past. She wasn't mirroring me at all. I was walking, but she was standing perfectly still, her head tilted slightly, watching me pass. I froze, my body going rigid with sheer terror. I slowly turned to face the mirror head-on. There I was, standing in the middle of the room. And there she was, standing in the mirror. We stared at each other. Her expression was blank, but her eyes were filled with an intelligence that was not my own. It was ancient, and it was hungry. Slowly, deliberately, she raised her hand and pressed it against the glass from her side. The gesture was an invitation, or a threat. My mind was racing. This wasn't a trick of the light. This wasn't stress. This was real. Something was living in my mirror, a copy, a parasite, a doppelganger that had been biding its time. What did it want? To trade places? The thought sent a jolt of ice through my veins. I started researching. Folklore, urban legends, paranormal forums. I found scattered stories, whispers of mirror dwellers and soul stealers. Beings trapped in reflections who could slowly gain power and autonomy the more they were observed, the more fear they fed on. The solution, according to these tales, was always the same. Break the mirror, destroy the prison, and you destroy the prisoner. But what if it wasn't that simple? What if breaking the glass set it free? The carvings on the frame, the vines, the flowers, were they a cage or a gateway? I felt trapped. If I kept the mirror, she grew stronger. If I broke it, what fresh hell would I unleash? The next night I was sitting on my bed, staring at the sheet-draped mirror, when I heard a soft tapping. It was coming from the mirror. Tap, tap, tap. A slow, rhythmic sound against the glass, muffled by the cloth. Then, a voice. It was my voice, but not my voice. It was a whisper, a rustle of dry leaves, yet it sounded exactly like me. "Let me out," it whispered. I clamped my hands over my ears, squeezing my eyes shut. "You're not real," I chanted, my own voice trembling. "You're not real." The tapping grew louder, more insistent. "I'm more real than you are," the whisper hissed, closer now, as if it were right beside my ear. "I've been waiting. You're just a shadow. I'm the one who's supposed to be out there. It's my turn." Panic gave way to a surge of adrenaline. I couldn't live like this. I grabbed the heaviest thing I could find, a cast iron lamp from my bedside table. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold it. I stood before the draped mirror, my own reflection thankfully hidden. "It's my life," I screamed, the words tearing from my throat. With all the strength I could muster, I swung the lamp. There was a deafening crash as metal hit glass. The sound of 1,000 fractures spiderwebbing in an instant. For a moment there was silence, broken only by the tinkle of falling shards. I stood panting, my heart hammering against my ribs. Then, the sheet covering the mirror began to fall away, pulled down as the shattered pieces slid from the frame. And in the remaining jagged fragments, I saw her. Not one of her, but dozens. Each piece of broken glass held a different part of her. An eye in one, a corner of a smirking mouth in another, a single beckoning finger in a third. And they were all moving, shifting, rearranging. They weren't trapped anymore. They were free. The fragments on the floor reflected the room, the ceiling, my own terrified face. But as I watched, the reflections began to warp. My face in the shards began to smile, that same cold, unfamiliar smile. All around me, on the floor, hundreds of tiny eyes were looking up at me, and hundreds of tiny mouths were whispering the same words, a chorus of my own voice rising from the floor. "Thank you." I backed away slowly, my eyes wide with horror. I had thought breaking the mirror was the solution. I was wrong. I hadn't destroyed her. I had multiplied her. I turned and ran, not looking back, fleeing my own apartment, my own reflection now scattered and free, waiting for me in every window, every puddle, every polished surface I might ever pass again. Thank you so much for watching. This story was a chilling one to tell. If you have your own creepy mirror stories, I'd love to hear them in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video if it gave you the chills, and subscribe for more tales from the dark. Stay safe, and maybe, just maybe, don't look too closely at your reflection tonight.